Hello, hello again, my fellow BIOS 150 students. I hope you're all doing well today. This is our first grouping of living things that we are going to tackle, and it is somewhat kind of an unfortunate place to start because it's the one that's most controversial and most ambiguous, shall I say. Now, I will also start by saying that this is constantly changing. This is one of the reasons you keep getting new textbooks or updated, edited textbooks, and that is because they keep changing their minds about these protist supergroups. It's been a few years since I've taught this course, and in the few years since I have taught it, I've had to update this significantly. So please keep that in mind if you have an older version of the textbook or if you have some different textbook. It even varies, even though this is like the latest edition of your textbook, that some other publishers will actually have different constructs for this. So I tend to I was about to say I was going to say blow this off. No, wrong term. I keep that in my thought bubble. I tend to keep this rather light and generalized. But you see in front of you on this first slide these protist supergroups, they are called. This is the latest and greatest way they are organizing these. And I'm just going to go through these briefly. You've got excavates, SAR, the Archaeoplastida, and then the Unikonts. So, like, what's the big deal, or I said, what's the problem here, is that, so we're covering the four kingdoms of Eukarya in this course, and we have three of them are extremely well defined. You know, you've got Plantae, and Animalia, and fungi, which we covered in the first lecture. They have very specific characteristics that put them in those particular kingdoms. But then there's like all of these different species, you know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, that are made up of eukaryotic cells, but they don't neatly fit into those three other kingdoms. They are not animals, they're not fungus, and they're not plants. So what they did a long time ago is they just said, okay, we're just going to put them in this group that we're going to call Protista or Protists, which even your book, and I know books that I've taught from before, even they admit, like, this is a really crappy way to do this. You know, to do science, it's kind of unspecific. And so they've kind of gotten their act together and they thought, well, what do we do with all of these species that we call protists? Do we make up different kingdoms? Like instead of having 4 kingdoms, we would have 20 kingdoms. And kind of the consensus was, for the most part, is all right, we're just going to group them into what we call super groups. And these super groups, again, have changed over the past few years. And more and more we are doing DNA analysis of many of these species, and what we're finding is their taxonomy changes pretty significantly. They get shifted around from group to group, and that's not unique to protists, but also with Animalia, Plantae, and fungi, that you know, textbooks even 5 years ago have different classification schemes for certain organisms because we say, well, they're grouped together in this class or order because of these characteristics that we observe, and then we do a DNA analysis and we see that they're actually either more closely related or not as closely related as we thought, and so things get shifted around. So basically a protist is just anything that isn't a plant, an animal, or a fungus, but is made up of eukaryotic cells, either one or very many. So you have so much diversity within this group, and we're just going to touch on this as far as the supergroups that are in this kingdom. which some people, again, don't even call a kingdom. They just say they're protists. It's not kingdom Protista, but anyway. And we'll see a lot of these examples in lab. So you've got excavata. This is a supergroup that has the parasibasalids, the diplomonads. Hopefully you haven't heard of this, trichomoniasis, which causes yeast infections in females, and giardia. I think a lot of us may have heard, unfortunately, of giardia, which causes a lot of gastrointestinal distress. This also includes the euglenozoas as well as the kinetoplastids. The sleeping sickness, that's one that is a type of kinetoplastid. And and the euglenozoa, like you may see them as euglenids. That's what we usually call those. And you will actually believe you're going to see some of the euglenozoas in the lab. Now, another supergroup we have, the SARs. An example of these SARs are these alveolates, probably the most common member of this supergroup of protists are the dinoflagellates. You may have actually heard of dinoflagellates when you hear about on the news where there's red tide in waters, and that is that it renders the water somewhat toxic and you have large fish kills. It also makes the water relatively unswimmable. It causes respiratory distress in humans. If you've ever gone to the beach and you hear that there's a red tide, sometimes you can't even walk on the beach because the wind that blows off the ocean stings your eyes and your throat. And that can cause lots of problems in regards to like commercial fisheries as well. So you see that too. The apocomplicans, these can cause malaria. These are, I should say, members of these are the plasmodiums that cause malaria. Now, ciliates are a part of the SARs, and these are ones that you will, if you haven't seen it in high school, I'm sure you're going to see it in college. The paramecium, this is a very common protist that is in the SARs. The Stramenopiles, these are quite common as well, and I hope to see those. And then diatoms. Diatoms, extremely important when it comes to ecological applications to these. They are responsible for more atmospheric oxygen than plants. They're photosynthetic, and they live in water columns, and they're single-celled, and they are in danger, in fact, in dying off because they don't really take well to UV radiation, which has been penetrating deeper into the oceans because of our thinning ozone layer. And when we talk about maintaining the oxygen in our atmosphere, we often say, save the rainforest, which are extremely important on many, many, many levels. But it's the diatoms who are really giving us more atmospheric oxygen. And then these fossilized diatoms, the diatomaceous earth, you may see these in filtration applications, like pool filters, and some fish tank filters use diatomaceous earth. You have the golden algae and brown algae, like kelp, for instance. It's certainly much different than paramecium, but they are related to one another genetically to be put into this supergroup of SAR. And so these seaweeds, these kelps, the stuff that washes up on the ocean. I mean, kelp can be tens of meters tall, a type of brown algae, but this is included in the SARs as well. And then we even go to the yeah, I can't see that. Mycetes. Water molds. Again, not a fungus, but fungal-like. These are attributed to these particular protists. And rhizarians, SAR is a very big group. We have amoeba. You know, these are part of this particular supergroup. And radiolarians, that really, really cool. I don't think we see any in lab. But these are all part of the SAR grouping as well. The Archaeoplastida, this is your red and green algae. So your golden and your brown algae are SARs, the red algae and your green algae. I think many of us are familiar with what this is. This is part of the Archaeoplastida, and what you see there is that it contains phycocythrin, which is an accessory pigment of chloroplasts, red and green algae. And so that's what groups these together, as well as DNA analysis and heritage. And the Charophyceans are actually what they think are the precursor to terrestrial plants. And then last but not least, we have the Unikonts. These are protists that are most closely related to fungus and animals. The amoebozoans and the ophiconts. The ophiconts are animals, fungi, and related protists. So amoebozoans, your slime molds, these are part of the Unikonts. Entamoebas, these are common parasites as far as like human parasites are concerned. And so this is an important group of protists too, again, that belong to the Unikonts. Okay, that was the end. Okay, so like I said, I'm pretty light on the protists here. I mean, there's just so much information on fungi and plants and animals that, you know, we give them a shout out, and certainly you can take upper level classes that cover protists in much more detail, but for our purposes, the Bio 2 survey course, that's as much detail as we get in regards to protists. Okay, that's it for now. Take care, guys. Bye.